Ever since taking my first furtive steps into Fort Condor in the OG Final Fantasy VII, I have loved tower defense games. And while many tabletop games over the years have drawn inspiration from the classic video game formula, few have really captured the spark that makes them so special, let alone set them up as a collaborative stand against the onslaught of untold legions. That is, until inspiration evolved into straight-up adaptation with Kingdom Rush: Rift in Time. This tabletop take on the hit mobile game is a fully cooperative, scenario-based campaign where players are defending the keep as enemies descend from one or more paths. If enough enemies make it to the keep to drop its health to 0, you lose, but if you survive long enough to destroy all of the portals, essentially super mobs representing the magical flusterclucks that are responsible for the vicious horde, you win. As a tower defense game, your main method of dealing with enemies is through constructing towers that will inflict damage within certain range, and based on player count, setup will outline where each player is capable of constructing their towers. During the hero's turn, players can freely assign towers to their construction zones, oriented how they wish so damage tiles can be set on horde trays. Players can also move their hero unit about, which can occupy space on hordes and commit their own attacks, acting as sort of mobile towers. Once heroes have taken their turns, any horde trays where all enemies have been covered by heroes, soldier units created by special types of towers, or damage tiles are destroyed. Then all horde trays still on the board move one space towards the keep, unless soldiers or heroes are standing on it, which will block movement but kill the soldiers and damage the heroes. Players then pick up all of their tower cards to be freely assigned again the next round, can spend cash earned by killing hordes on new towers from the supply, then a new round starts and each spawn point adds more hordes to the table. One classic problem of tabletop tower defense has been how do you deal with the quantity? Because you want it to feel like you have waves of forces coming at you, but if you just had tons of figures on the table, it would get so cluttered. So classically, you just wouldn't. But the execution in Kingdom Rush works out brilliantly, where a single platform is a whole host of enemies, and your damage tokens are little tetramino blasts that you have to arrange to cover as many enemies as possible. And this works so well. The quantity of enemies on a single tile isn't just a cosmetic thing, because those damage tokens, unless otherwise specified, can't be rotated at all, and they can't cover each other up, and you can't have them hanging off the tray. Not to mention, there are all kinds of enemies with special effects, from being resistant to certain types of damage, to being untouchable by heroes, to healers or fast enemies that if any on the tile are left uncovered at the end of the round, they remove all damage or move a second time. So what towers you get, what you play, and how you play it really matters. Sure, the artillery stuff is strong and hits multiple spots, but the level 3 mage tower has 4 rotational damage. Too bad it's in a fixed Z shape, which is what makes the level 3 archery tower so good. It may only do 3 damage, but you can fill in gaps beautifully. Even leveling up towers is a huge decision. On a hero turn, instead of playing a tower, you can put it back into the supply, grab the next level in its category, then put it face down in front of another player who adds it to their hand next turn. Leveling up is a crucial element of the game, but comes at the expense of that tower not being available this turn and limiting your own options on the next. All of this makes for a great strategic and thoughtful puzzle that encourages really tight coordination between players in order to succeed, especially as scenarios become more and more difficult as you go. Which, speaking of challenge, it's interesting. On the default difficulty, which is 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, this isn't the type of game where it feels like you are doomed more often than you're not. It is challenging, but in my experience, it feels like if you play wisely that you'll keep things mostly in hand. The fun comes from the puzzle, figuring out how to use your limited resources to hold on one turn at a time. While there's just enough challenge through scenario design and unpredictability through variation in enemy cards that you'll still always have to be on your toes, and if you lose ground, things can turn real soup sandwich real quick. The flip side of this, of course, is that the game does encourage analysis, and particularly crunchy-minded players are going to want to think through the outcomes of several moves at a time. If I play this, then I could play this, and if you play something that covers this, no, let me see. Okay, if I do this, then you do. Like it's 4D chess or something, which, depending on your preference and style of play, can either make it wonderfully thinky or obnoxiously analytical. It's not that I think that this game is hard to grasp. In fact, mechanically, I think that this is a great family game. But I do think that players going in should be aware of their own instincts to quarterback or have to overanalyze every single move. Another criticism I have of the game is that the translucent tower site indicators used to lay out the different player colors are merely okay. They can do the job, but in the face of the 3D Towers expansion, the transparencies pale compared to the added functionality of their cardboard cousins, which makes it so much easier to add and remove tower cards, and the ability to take in information at a glance goes up dramatically. Enough so that I wish some compromise were made and they were included stock in the base game. As is, the game is fine, but if you dig it, I highly recommend the expansion. It is a lot more material, and it adds just a bit more to setup time, but I think it's well worth it. The last thing that I want to mention, which is neither praise nor criticism really, is that this is a scenario-based campaign, meaning that you are intended to play through the scenarios in a linear fashion, and there is a story, but there's very little in the way of campaign-based hooks or divergent paths or persistent elements. While that may be a disappointment to some, I actually really love that the game comes with a map and stickers so you can mark completion at various difficulty levels, encouraging you to replay individual scenarios at higher difficulties later on to platinum, so to speak, which, intentionally or not, recalls the genre's video game roots. Personally, I love this game. It's a bright, inviting, and thinky cooperative game that captures the strategic and thematic elements that I love about the genre so much, while coming up with clever translations from digital to tabletop so it doesn't feel beholden to ideas that don't work in a physical game. So as a huge fan of tower defense that has felt that the genre has been sorely lacking tabletop representation, I approve. And that's our review. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcast, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.